Okay, this is Dr. B, and it's time for our last part 4 of AP Chemistry memorization. Let's check your knowledge of significant figures. Tell me, what is the volume in that graduated cylinder? I would go with 32.0 milliliters. Why? Well, part 1, we've lined up with the graduated cylinder, so we are avoiding any sort of parallax. We see about 32, but we know that the rule is to always interpolate, mean to estimate one digit. And we're measuring from the bottom of the meniscus. I'd say it's just about 32 on the nose, so I'd go 32.0, and then I would not forget to use the units, which in this case is milliliters. So when measuring, we do always estimate one digit. We'll line it up. Why? Well, if you're too low or too high, you're going to get an inaccurate reading. You won't be able to clearly see the bottom of the meniscus. That's known as parallax. An old-fashioned device that highlights what parallax is something like this, where the reflection caused by that line would be obscured if you're directly lined up. You'll see a reflection to the right or the left if you're not lined up, and you're going to get an inaccurate reading. So it's a beautiful old-fashioned device for minimizing parallax. All right, bunch of numbers. Tell me how many significant figures. 32 has 2 because non-zero numbers are always significant. This number has 3 because we always dump the leading zeros, whether there's a decimal place or not. This has 4 because we always keep the trapped zeros in the center. This one only has 1, and that one has 3 because for the trailing zeros we do keep them, but only if there's a decimal place. Therefore, this number would have 5 because the trapped zeros are kept, and the trailing zero is kept due to the decimal place. This one would have similarly 5 because, let's work it out left to right. Leading zero, we always dump it. The trapped zeros, we always keep them. The trailing zero, we will keep because I do see a decimal place. Rounding. What if you have that number, but you need to report it to 2 significant figures? I'd go with 2.3, meaning 5 or higher go up. If I add this number here, the raw number I believe is 7.46. But for adding and subtracting, we have to keep the fewest number of decimal places, so I'll only report that to the 10th, therefore 7.5. Apparently no units here. Here it certainly looks like the answer is 2, but the rule for multiplying and dividing is to keep the fewest number of significant figures, which is 3. Therefore 2 is the correct but not precise enough. Should be 2.00. What has infinite number of significant figures? Well, counting in exact relationships, like 4 cows in the field or 12 inches a foot, that number and that number are infinitely significant. I mean, it would be silly to say that only has one significant figure, right? That relationship implies infinite precision. Should we round as we go? No, you should not. You should always carry along as much precision as you can. An intelligent use of a calculator can help a lot with that. But say you're doing things manually or you just want to write down a temporary number, how much extra should you give? Most students give insane amounts. You don't have to. One extra guard digit should do it. In other words, if you know the answer will have 4 significant figures, we'll carry along at least 5 and you are fine. What about combinations? Well, when you do it in practice, it becomes pretty obvious. Carry along to get an exact number and then apply the more stringent rule. Here we have both adding and subtracting and multiplying. And if I can say so, one of my pet peeves is you can search through textbook after textbook, and they always avoid this. I never understood why. But for the adding and subtracting, we'd be going with 2 decimal places. That might be some pretty good precision. But when we multiply it by 33, we throw it out the window because we're only going to be able to use 2 significant figures. So I would get the raw number, which is that. And unfortunately, I can't say 268.65 because of the multiplication, which limits us to 2 significant figures, meaning the answer would be 270 without the decimal place, or report it using scientific notation. Okay, those are the rules for significant figures.